This is Distant Replay, the podcast that goes back in time to relive all the greatest events that we witnessed in sports. From upsets, to championships, to cultural moments, we discuss it all. Coming up on today's episode.
You have your arch rival here, the Colts and the Patriots. So much to exercise here in one night, and to do it coming back from 18 down. Can they finish it, though?
If you get a big game here, Jim, you immediately call timeout so you can get 2 to 3 shots into the end zone.
I don't even think Peyton's going to watch. Intercepted! Colts are going to the Super Bowl. Marvin Jackson.
We're taking you back to January 21st, 2007. It's the AFC Championship game. New England, Indianapolis, in Indy. It's Peyton versus Tom. It's a classic. Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, who are rolling at this point, versus Manning, who's trying to get that monkey off his back in the playoffs. Mike, this was, out of all the AFC games we've seen in the last 20 years, championship games at least, where's this one rank for you?
Look, there are games that have had maybe better finishes, been more exciting, but the fact that this was Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, AFC Championship game in Indy this time instead of in New England makes this at least a top 5 championship game I've seen in my lifetime.
It's so crazy to go back through these old games during this era, and just like every AFC game, you look at every single season and different teams, and like everybody's got to go through the Patriots at some point. I mean, it feels like literally every single year, and we've seen that for almost 20. I know you know for this firsthand, Mike, as a Jets fan, as we talk about on the show. I'm not breaking any news to you, but you just go back and look at some of these years and stuff, and it's just like everybody's got to get over this hurdle.
Yeah, and this, these two quarterbacks, not to talk about the Jets, this is the last time, I promise, but you have Brady sticking it to you for 20 years because of something a Jet player did by hurting Drew Bledsoe. Then you have Manning at the time doing something pretty much unprecedented, staying in school when he's going to be guaranteed to be the first pick to not have to be drafted by the Jets. So now you have these two.
I didn't know. I don't think I knew that.
Oh, yeah. His junior year, he didn't come out because in part because he didn't want to be on the Jets.
Well, I did not. That's amazing.
It is. I know.
The Jets are like the Chargers for Eli, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. I remember at that time the Colts were still in the AFC East.
Oh man.
So now that it changed very shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
But yeah, so double whammy that these two are now the face of the league for 20 years. But I digress.
I had no idea you had that kind of feeling about Peyton. That's interesting.
No, I like Peyton. You get over that quick,
right,
because they weren't in their division. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
well, that's the goal today. We'll go through this entire thing, take you back to that time in the 2006 NFL season, what was happening with these two teams, go through this game itself, which was an incredible game. I'd forgotten exactly how this thing played out, which was remarkable. We'll take you through all that as well. Please smash the like button on the YouTube channel if you're watching us there. We appreciate that. Leave a comment.
Smash that like button.
If you're listening on podcasts, whatever platform, please hit subscribe there as well. We appreciate that. We're also on Twitter and Instagram. So again, January 21st, 2007, Mike. Let's go back to the 2006-2007 season quickly, just to kind of bring you up to speed on where we are at this, because as good as these two teams are, and you expect them to be at the top, they were the 3 and 4 seed this year. The Chargers had 2 losses this season.
Yeah, this is one of those seasons where, and there was a couple of these in the 2000s where you got LaDainian and Tomlinson at full force at this time.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have vintage Tomlinson. You have the Chargers with Marty Schottenheimer, right?
Yep.
And, they're hosting the Patriots in a divisional round, a game which obviously, as we know now, the Patriots won. But, yeah, not a quintessential Pats-Colts 1-2 seed like you would expect.
Yeah, and on the NFC side was even more interesting. You had the Bears, who were the 1 seed, 13-3 that year. Bears fans probably long for that era of football. But then 3 NFC East teams make it.
Okay, so you had
Eagles. Eagles won the division. Cowboys,
and
then Giants.
Redskins, right?
Nope,
Giants.
Giants
Okay.
were 8-8. They were the 6th seed that year. So
okay,
very interesting the way that year played out. But so that's your playoff look. But to get into the playoffs here, and once we got into it, so the road to this point, you probably remember that first matchup, Mike, the Jets against the Patriots. Not a close game.
No, not a close game. This is the first year of the Eric Mangini era.
Right, who came over from the Patriots.
Yep.
And then the Colts beat the Chiefs 23-8. And then maybe this conference or the divisional round of this playoff might have been one of the best divisional rounds. Looking back on it, I mean, I can't think of many games that were as good as this. So you had the Patriots beat the Chargers, the 1 seed, 24-21. Colts beat Baltimore, which obviously you have the history between those two cities, 15-6, which that game, 15-6. And then you had New Orleans and Philly, 27-24. Same exact score in Chicago and Seattle. So you had 3 3-point games, and that Indianapolis-Baltimore game was 15-6.
Very unique, as you're saying. And remember, this Patriots team, although they had to go on the road in the divisional round, they're 12-4 in the regular season.
Right.
So we're not talking about a team that squeaked in the playoffs here. What was the Colts record in the regular season? You have that up?
Yeah, the Colts finished 12-4 as well. But I thought what was interesting about the Colts is they started off 8-0. They lost 4 of their last 7 games in the regular season.
Yeah, so you have the Colts and Patriots in prime Tom Brady, Peyton Manning era, both winning 12 games, neither of them getting a bye.
Yeah, what are the chances of that happening?
Yeah,
Really.
Yep.
So they both were very good, but they weren't the best that season. And you see the road to the Colts getting a home game against this Patriots team. And remember, this Patriots team had won 3 of the previous 5 Super Bowls. So this is the first era of Patriots greatness.
First era of Patriots greatness, and at this point, the narrative is Peyton Manning cannot beat the Patriots in the playoffs. And specifically where you get that from is the conference championship game in 2003, right? Where that, it's sort of it's a game you'd remember if you went back and looked at the highlights. They beat them 24-14, and they followed that up in 2004 with beating the Colts in the divisional round 20-3.
Yep.
Both those games in Foxborough, though,
Yep.
right? I think it's important to mention. 2005 is when we had the Patriots lose to the Broncos in the divisional round at Denver, and you had the Colts lose to the Steelers on that, remember, at home.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that play with Ben Roethlisberger?
Yeah.
Where he tackled, I believe, was it Bob Sanders?
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
We tackled the defense on a Bettis fumble, right? He tackled the defensive back when the defensive back had a wide open field, and he basically ran into Ben Roethlisberger. That's the play you'd remember from that game. They lost to them there. Was that the Vanderjack game where Vanderjack missed the kicks?
It could have been, yeah.
I think I remember that's sticking out to me too.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
The idiot liquored up kicker. Yeah, but regardless, you get to a point in 2006 where that is the narrative. Brady Manning, best quarterbacks in football, but can Peyton Manning beat Tom Brady? And if it's going to happen, it better happen now because he's got him at home for once.
Yeah, and keep in mind, you mentioned that Peyton won two MVPs, 2 of the 3 previous MVPs heading into the season. So you are talking about the top of the game for both these guys, although they did play a long time and competed against each other for a number of years after this. This is still the very kind of beginning of them being the dominant 2 forces in football and squaring off on the stage in this matchup. So that's kind of the extra layer to this. I also think it's interesting to look down these rosters and the coaching staff, Mike. It hadn't really changed a whole lot with the Patriots, obviously, at the top. But you look at through all their staff, the staff, man, it's like guys that are all over the place now. And we know what happens with Belichick's staff, and you're very familiar with some of the guys. But, you had Josh McDaniels was the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach. Brian Daboll was on the staff. Matt Patricia, Pepper Johnson. Again, you go down the list, and it's just a bunch of guys that we've seen go on to other things.
Yeah, the New England coaches, the Bill Belichick, Bill Parcells tree. I don't know how many times we got to hear about that over and over and over again for the last 25 years, but it's a thing because they win, they're part of coaching staffs that win games,
Mm-hmm.
And you had that coaching staff. And then on the Colts side, remember, we're not fresh off Tony Dungy coming over from the Buccaneers, but it's a question with Tony Dungy now too. All right, Gruden took his team that he built or helped build and won a Super Bowl with it. Can Dungy get over the hump as well? So It's sort of it's a get over the hump type game for not only Manning but Dungy as well.
Yeah, this Dungy coaching staff was also really good too. Tom Moore's offensive coordinator, Jim Caldwell was an assistant. Frank Reich, this was his first year in coaching. He was an intern for this team.
Yeah, I didn't realize he had previous ties to Indianapolis. I know some random Colts fan will like
Dude, you
see
didn't know
that as
that?
us not being football fans. Yeah. But you know,
You didn't
but
know
yeah,
that Indy gave Frank Reich his start in
Yeah.
coaching?
You didn't know that Tony Dungy yet again did another thing that's awesome that I'm going to over exaggerate.
But I thought that was interesting. He was just an intern on this team, but we know where he is now as the head coach. It didn't take him very long to go from intern to head coach, honestly, when you look at the big picture. But so that's the coaching staff. Roster wise, Mike, who did you, or the headliners for you, but also who maybe did you forget about?
Okay, so what's unique about the Patriots roster here, Ben, is stay with me, right? So you have the mainstays during this era. By the mainstays, I mean like Brady, Richard Seymour, Vrabel, Bruschi,
Right.
guys like that, okay? What this year did, though, for the Patriots, in my opinion, is this. If you look at the weapons Tom Brady has around him, right, the best offensive player on the Patriots besides Tom Brady on this team is Corey Dillon.
Okay, I wasn't sure we were going to go with that, honestly, because they're all about the same.
So we're talking Corey Dillon and Lawrence Maroney in the backfield, Daniel Graham, and was the other tight end Benjamin Watson? Okay, Benjamin Watson, Rashae Caldwell, and Jabbar Gaffney are the receivers, right?
Yep.
We're not talking about mid-'90s Florida here. We're talking about 2006 here in the pros.
Right.
Okay? The unique thing this ushers in, Ben, is they get Randy Moss the next year, Welker, and then the next generation, they build into the next generation with Rob Gronkowski, Aaron Hernandez, and, then they start building these offenses completely different. And I think this year was a big part of that because Brady had nothing. And he was, you talk about making mountains out of molehills. He did that this season, if you look at this roster. And I remembered for some reason, had forgotten about Asante Samuel. But he was great in this game, and he was very good during this era as well.
Yeah, he was. And you're right. I mean, even watching this game again, you kind of see the lack of weapons that he has at his disposal. It's pretty bad. And Dillon was still a pretty good running back. Kevin Falk, had his moments. Lawrence Maroney was a rookie this year, and again, he had his moments. But you look back now on this team, like if you took Tom Brady off this team and you look down that roster, now the defensive side of the ball had some pretty good players. But you look at that offense. I mean, would you have ever guessed that offense was a playoff offense?
Yeah, not only a playoff offense, but like could you think of a quarterback that could make them a playoff offense?
Right.
I mean, this must have been one of those years where Brady walked in the offseason and was like, "Yeah, you got to be kidding me here.
We got to do something here about this team."
Yeah, we got to. I'm in my prime. Like, let's go here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are we rested on our laurels or what? And that would become an issue with Brady, with Belichick, and the Patriots throughout the years.
Right.
With the way they built the offense, but I thought that was unique. And the Colts during this era, it's Manning, Wayne, and Harrison, right? Mm-hmm. What I didn't realize, Ben, is that by this time, Edgerrin James is already gone.
Yeah, I'd kind of forgotten that too.
Yeah. So, the reason why that's unique is because, we had Edgerrin James, Peyton Manning, both inducted into the Hall of Fame recently. This team also has a young Joseph Adai, who was big in this game. They had Dominic Rhodes, who played a lesser role in this game, but was borderline MVP of the Super Bowl a couple weeks later. And the biggest difference for this Colts team, I don't know if you remember, this was a major storyline during this playoff run, but how much better their defense got in the playoffs. They allowed 100 yards rushing in every regular season game, which is a crazy stat.
Yeah, when they said that on the game, I couldn't believe that. Was that the first time it had ever happened?
First time it ever happened.
Yeah.
And their defense, Dwight Freeney is the headliner, okay? He's a Hall of Famer. I don't know when his 5 years are up. I don't know if he's first ballot, but he's pretty close.
Right.
And then the other guy on the defense that was talked about incessantly during this playoff run was Bob Sanders.
Oh, yeah.
You would think Bob Sanders was like Ronnie Lott reincarnate or something during this playoff run.
You would think so.
Because he didn't play many games during the regular season. And the defense starting to play well at the end of the regular season into the playoffs coincided with him coming back. And that was one of those lazy storylines that got drilled into your skull for a month and a half.
Yeah, he's like little Rod Woodson back there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's like Ed Reed. Who is that?
Yeah.
We have Bob Sanders.
Right. Dallas Clark also a big part of this offense as well at tight end.
Oh yeah.
And the other big story in this game is Adam Vinatieri, the kicker. That was
his first
a huge
year?
story too. Yeah.
Is this his first year?
Yeah.
His first year with the Colts? Okay. So, yeah, we're talking about one of the best, probably the best clutch kicker of all time. I don't think that's a controversial statement, going from the Patriots to the Colts. So,
because don't forget, the Patriots actually drafted Stephen Gostkowski in the fourth round that year.
Yep, and he lasted a long time too.
Yeah, he would take over for Vinatieri, so that was obviously another big story. Honestly, I'd forgotten how I would say early that Vinatieri left the Patriots. I was thinking he was around a little bit longer than that, but it's hard to believe it. Already going back 15 years now to this game, which is again in itself nuts.
What you forget is I'm pretty sure Vinatieri was the kicker on the Parcells Super Bowl team.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had. I mean, his career, Mike, was 96 to 2019. I mean, think about that. It's stupid, but he was so good, and did obviously had a big impact on this Colts team for a number of years. What else pre-game do we need to know about, Mike, or do people need to remember before we get into it?
I know I've hit on it, and not to beat a drum here, but the pressure on Peyton Manning in this game is not describable. I think by this point, he's ascending to be one of the best quarterbacks of all time, but that success is now limited to the regular season because remember, they lost to the Jets, I believe it was 2001. They lost at the Jets in a wild card game like 41-7. So you add that playoff game also to the losses we talked about to the Patriots, and there's a tremendous amount of pressure on Peyton Manning.
Yeah, that is the huge story here. And I told you I'd forgotten how this game started because I remember it being a really good game, but I just forgot how it all played out. Now, again, RCA Dome, which is no longer around, was the site of this game on January 21st, 2007, on CBS, and Jim Nantz is on the call, as always. I'm always just super impressed at how good the CBS games look. This game was, early HD. Because they even have the score bug that's kind of offset in the center, right? So that it fits the 4x3 screens that people are still watching on. But I always forget the quality of these games is just so good.
CBS has a very crisp, efficient, sports operation. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? In my opinion.
Yep.
Everything they put on is usually really good. Games, studio shows. I enjoy CBS Sports. I couldn't agree with you more. And you had Nantz and Sims.
Yep.
I liked Nantz and Sims. I like Sims. And I think there's the thing now where everyone loves, everyone loves Romo.
Right.
But I thought Sims was really good. I liked the rapport they had with each other. I like this era of CBS announcing.
Yeah, I thought it was very good. And just the broadcast overall was very, very sharp, and I enjoyed going back to watch it. So first quarter in this game, Mike, again, the Colts are looking to get off to a good start, I'm sure, in this game. And Brady and this team come out, and it's kind of a feel each other out, couple of punts early in this matchup. But then, of course, you have this Patriots team kind of come through. And in a real weird sequence of events that happens a couple times in this game, the first score comes on a fumble that gets bounced around, which I don't know how the Colts don't fall in this thing. It's inside the 5. I don't know how they have 3 guys on top of the ball. It squirts out behind them into the end zone, and an offensive lineman falls on it for a touchdown for the Patriots. Those are the kind of moments in a game, Mike, where if you're the fan trying to get over the hump, you pretty much write the game off at that moment. Like, if this is the way it's going,
there was a couple moments here. There was a couple. They hit on a great point. There was a couple moments in this first half where you're like, oh, this is the era where you're like, oh, the Patriots get every call. They get so lucky. We're still in that era of the first half of this Patriots run here. And this is vintage Patriots. You had the immortal Bob Sanders who could have even jumped on that ball. I'm surprised he didn't walk on water and get it and run it back. But you had a big Corey Dillon touchdown run, clock killing Corey Dillon. That's what the Patriot fans used to call him, which is annoying. But Logan Mankins recovered the fumble. By the way, he ended up being a great player for them. 7-0, 7 minutes left in the quarter. 2 very good pass breakups by the Patriots in this quarter by Asante Samuel and Ellis Hobbs, who would have a huge role in this game.
Yeah,
we'll get to later. Yeah. They both did, and those would have been touchdowns, and they were passes to Wayne and Harrison. Mm-hmm. The Colts do add a field goal late in the quarter and make it 7-3 heading into the second.
Yeah, one thing I picked up on in this quarter, and it kind of ties into our outdated as we go through. We kind of point out stuff that now looks kind of silly in retrospect. But what would somebody say now? Like, if you're just tuning into a game now and you saw a quarterback on the sideline flipping through a binder of pictures, would that look odd to you now in this era of tablets and technology?
Yeah, it would, for sure.
You see Manning on the sideline. He's got his binder and he's just flipping through pictures of formations, right? But how they used to do it. They didn't have the video ability on the sidelines, which you would think so. This doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but that things have changed quickly. But that's the random thought I had in the first quarter. All right, second quarter. So down 7-3 Colts are. Brady goes right back down the field, 14-3 early in the second. And the Patriots, they look really good. Now, I don't think Manning had played that poorly. There, again, some good plays defensively. He had some tough throws that were, in pretty good spots. But he does make a big mistake here early second quarter. Down 14-3. Asante Samuel jumps a route. Marvin Harrison, pick six to the house, and it's 21-3. And, I mean, I think you can clearly think back to that moment, Mike, when everyone was just thinking, hey, it's playoff Peyton Manning again.
Crystallized in my mind is that Asante Samuel interception.
Mm-hmm.
Very unique that Asante Samuel is involved in two plays that are like crystallized in your mind. There's this one, and there's the next year versus the Giants when he had a chance to intercept the ball to clinch the game, and he missed it.
Right.
So very unique from his career perspective, just as a side note. But this play is one of those ones where I will never forget this play because it was such a big thing to come back from now. 21-3, extremely low point for the Colts. The fans are dead silence. Sims compares him to Champ Bailey, which in 2006 is a very high compliment. This is now, he has Asante Samuel's third interception for a touchdown in the playoffs, tied for the most ever, which I thought was a unique stat. The next possession, Ben, I didn't remember for the Colts. They punted from their own end zone, which could have gotten dicey. Underrated was the Colts D holding on that next drive, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was huge. Oh, it was
Because
huge.
if the Pats score there, it's all she wrote.
The other thing to remember about this kind of moment in time is the Colts offense had been struggling a little bit. Going back to that Baltimore game when it was 15-6, like they had not scored a touchdown in a long time. So you kind of take that feel of like, hey, our offense just isn't clicking right now. Oh, wait, we're down 21-3 to the Patriots at this point. You forget about it, right? It's basically over.
Yep, and they drive all the way down the field to end the half, and they still don't capitalize and settle for a field goal. So, even when they're trying to gain the momentum back, they can't. It's 21-6 at halftime.
But you nailed it on that defensive stop because the Colts went 3 and out after that pick six. And not only did they go 3 and out, they took a sack. Like, they were backed up inside their own 10. And so everything that could possibly give the other team momentum is happening. And you're punting to Tom Brady, giving him the ball back at midfield, down 21-3, and they get a stop there. That to me was as big as anything else that Peyton Manning or this offense did, was just keeping the score to keeping it to 3 scores, essentially. And they were able to do that. 21-6 at halftime. And did you hear it? Were there boos at halftime going to the locker room?
I was just going to ask you that. It was very quick.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a whole crowd booing them.
Like the Nats weren't like super loud in this broadcast. I don't know if it was a YouTube video or what, but But you thought you could hear it before they were kind of potted down a little bit and went away. But I was like, there may be some boos right now for Peyton Manning.
Yeah, and to the Colts' credit though, they come out in the third quarter, Ben, with the first vintage Colts drive of the game. And if you watch the Colts during this era and you go back and watch it, you'll see what I mean. It's Peyton Manning, a maestro at the line, throwing a lot of underneath passes, matriculating the ball down the field, as they say, right?
Yep.
And then some very key runs inside to sort of keep the defense off balance. Leads to a Manning QB sneak for a touchdown, 14 plays, 76 yards, and it's over. It's almost a 7-minute drive.
As we go back in these games, especially football games, there's always one drive, right, that you're like, that's the drive that kind of changes everything, changes the whole feel of the game. And it was that drive coming out of the halftime, getting that late field goal, and then going right down the field. Very, very smooth, calm, right? Not rushing things. Get that answer. It's 21-10. Okay, now you're back in this ball game. What do you think? The Colts in this game, by the way, were 3-point favorites, number one. I wonder what that halftime line was. You think people were all over the Colts in the second half? It had to have been like 6 or 7, I would guess.
That's good. So a 3-point line, if you follow football, they're basically saying they think the teams are even. Right. You usually get about 3 points just for being at home.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I was not following halftime lines back then, I'm not going to lie.
I'm curious.
I would be now.
Right. So, that was a huge, huge drive for the Colts. And it's the first Indy touchdown in over 100 minutes of the playoffs, going back to that. So
crazy, especially with how good this offense was.
Wild. Absolutely wild. So they get a stop again, and Manning goes right back down the field. So you got 2 back-to-back drives that are just, I mean, this is what we expected to see out of Peyton Manning. This is what we want to see out of him to get over that hump. And it's crazy with quarterbacks like this how quickly a game can change to where you think you're out of it, but basically you put two good drives together and it's a tie ball game. And the call to go for two there was pretty ballsy.
Oh, yeah. It made no sense, and the announcers pointed that out right before they did it.
Yeah.
Dan Klecko with the touchdown, and we're not going to gloss this over because another Jet connection. He's the son of should-be Hall of Famer Joe Klecko. We should do a whole episode on why Joe Klecko should be a Hall of Famer. I guess if you make the Pro Bowl at I think he was all pro or at least made a Pro Bowl at 3 different positions. I guess that's not good enough. But you have these receivers with marginal stats to get in. I love Isaac Bruce, but if he's a Hall of Famer, Joe Klecko should be. But anyway, 18-point lead. 18-point lead is gone in 11 minutes. Okay?
Yeah. And that 2-point conversion, by the way, too, like Peyton Manning made I don't know if it was a bad throw or a really good throw. Like the decision to kind of loft it up over the defense, and it worked out, but I couldn't decide if it was a brilliant throw or an awful throw.
And Harrison very quiet in this game as a whole.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
But this is one of his highlights for sure. And this is when, Ben, on the next kickoff, we get into Ellis Hobbs, who we mentioned his defensive exploits a little while ago. He has a couple kick returns here in the second half that really, really boost the Patriots. And the first one is on this kickoff here, 80-yard kickoff return. And now you're thinking again, like, oh, God, the Colts, man. They just tied the game. Now they allow an 80-yard kickoff return.
This is a sequence where, we talk about that first touchdown that was scored. You're like, okay, as a Colts fan, man, this game's not going to break our way. So this is another sequence where I'm writing off my team if I'm a Colts fan. And it's still close, right? But you get it back 21-21. You battled back, and then you give up this long kick return. Now Brady's inside. No, he's basically in the red zone again already. And then you get a big play where your boy Gaffney drops a wide open touchdown pass. Oh. I mean,
it was Caldwell. It was Caldwell.
Caldwell, sorry, yes.
I get them confused too, so
yeah,
don't worry.
But we should definitely point that out because Caldwell was definitely the guy making the mistakes in this game. But dropped a wide open, perfect throw, bread in the basket, easy catch, drops it, and it brings up a third down and long at this point, essentially. So you get that lucky break, and you get them in a third down situation, but then boom, Gaffney catches a touchdown in the back of the end zone, which – on third down, which was a very tough catch. And this is still back when you had you can force them out of the bounds, and it's still like if you force them out, it's still a touchdown. They don't have to get their 2 feet in. Which, by the way, they're going back and reviewing this thing and going back over it. Don't you love how complicated it is to actually determine what's a touchdown catch in the NFL? Like,
yeah,
it's always the
ridiculous. Case. It's ridiculous, but it's just over. We could again another episode on that. But maybe we should do the history of instant replay. That wouldn't be bad. But anyway, that play, when that play happens and it's 28-21, I mean, could you, we've been hitting on this, but being a Colts fan in that moment, you have confidence in Peyton Manning, but I look at the worst loss in sports is losing a home conference championship game in the NFL. That's the way my brain works.
Okay.
I couldn't imagine being a Colts fan at this moment in time.
No. Down.
But you give Manning credit, though. He came right back.
He did, and this was just a heck of a second half all around. But the thing was, Manning hurts his hand on that next drive on a follow-through, hits his lineman in the helmet, I think Saturday. And there's question about like how effective he's going to be the rest of the way. Patriots come back and tack on a field goal. Could have been more. Caldwell had another big drop that may or may not have extended the drive. Another wide open catch though, when nobody was even checking him on the outside. Like one of those defensive error miscues where like you got the wide receiver waving his hands in the air to the quarterback on the sideline, and Brady throws it to him and he drops it.
Yeah, so a couple things. We had the Colts touchdown to tie the game. At 28 was another fumble recovery by a lineman for a touchdown by Jeff Saturday.
Yeah.
You had right before the Caldwell play that you just mentioned, right before the field goal, put the Pats up 31-28. Bob Sanders got hurt. But of course he walked off the field.
Of course.
Yeah, you can't hurt Bob Sanders.
A lot of courage.
Other than the 12 games he missed in the regular season, you can't hurt him.
I had no idea you had this obsession with Bob Sanders.
I don't have no, but you remember. I know I'm kidding around here, but if you remember this time period, all you heard about was Bob Sanders. That's all you heard about.
No question. So it's the touchdown tied it up. Then you had the field goal made it 31. 28. Vinatieri comes back, scores, kicks a field goal. And it's just back and forth here. I mean, almost every drive is ending in points. Gostkowski kicks another one. And again, it's 30. The Patriots continue just to take the lead. The Colts cannot get over that hump and regain the lead. But the Colts get another huge stop, though, and get the ball back to your boy Peyton Manning with just about 2.5 minutes left. And this is the drive.
One timeout.
And I thought Nance nailed it at the beginning of the drive. Like before the first play, as they're coming out on the field, he mentions this could be the drive that changes it all for Peyton Manning. And it did.
Great sense of the moment. Nance is great at that. He gets it. He gets it from that perspective. He always has.
Yeah. It was a great drive. I mean, right down the field, a big play to Dwight Clark down the middle.
Dwight Clark.
Dwight Clark. Dallas Clark down the middle.
We got to do that game, by the way.
I know,
another conference championship game. Yeah, but yeah, go ahead.
And that play just kind of set him up, and it was right down the field. Just they made the drive look pretty simple, but in that moment, it was not anything but for Peyton Manning, right? But you look at it now, and it would just seem like a very procedural drive for him to score that touchdown. But I mean, I don't think anybody thought it would happen until it did.
Yep, exactly. It's one of those things you needed to see happen, and then when it happened, you're like, well, it's Peyton Manning. It's kind of like not a huge surprise. Why am I so surprised? But again, you never saw it happen. I liken it to like another legendary player like LeBron.
Yeah.
When he hadn't won yet, you're like, can he win? And then after he won, you're like, well, of course he can win. He's like one of the top 5 players ever. You know what I mean? But yeah, great moment for Peyton Manning. I found myself yelling at the TV at one point, Ben, random, where 31-28 with 5:30 left, 3rd and 5 for the Colts, and they ran the ball.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Oh, God. Could you just imagine? I always put myself in the fan standpoint. Could you imagine being a fan at that point? I don't even know. I obsess over like offensive and defensive coordinators and like clock management and all weird stuff. That would drive me up the wall. But look, great moment for the Colts. 32 points in the second half, which is crazy. To think a Belichick defense in the playoff is in this era is allowing 32 points and a half.
I know. I mean, pretty wild. And it ends, surprisingly, with a Tom Brady interception. Marlon Jackson picks him off to end it. And it's the largest comeback ever in a conference championship game. But it's that combination of Peyton hadn't done it yet, but on the other hand, Tom Brady always gets it done. And they managed to flip-flop that.
Yep, it was good. It was in Marlon Jackson, I'd like to point out, just to put a bow on all this, Marlon Jackson only intercepted that ball because they had to throw away from Bob Sanders, and everyone knew it. Just want to make sure we're clear
being sarcastic on that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Okay, that is clear. Marlon Jackson, who was the beneficiary of teams avoiding Bob Sanders, no question. Another Michigan guy, old Marlon Jackson.
Yeah, there you go.
That'll put a bow on this one, Mike. What outdated things from this game did you see? Is there anything that you picked up on? Because we're going to put it up on the website, so if you want to watch the game in its entirety, it'll be on distantreplaypodcast.com. So go check it out there. But we got all the plays. We didn't get a lot of the in-between stuff, so it was hard to find anything truly outdated.
Yeah, couldn't really find much outdated. Like you said, the presentation of the game was really good. The broadcast was crisp, so there was really nothing from that perspective. A lot of guys on the sidelines who weren't playing in long shorts, a hallmark of the mid-2000s.
True. The outdated that I heard that ties into Alabama, of course. Joseph Adai, the reference to, hey, played for Nick Saban, and Nick had just left LSU like a year ago. Was coaching at Miami, so very interesting time period. He hadn't done what he'd done now, but there wasn't much else otherwise outdated for me. Some stats from this game: Tom Brady, 21 of 34, 232, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Peyton Manning, 27 of 47. 349, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. How would you rate these two quarterback performances in this game?
Not their best performances, but Manning better in the fourth quarter. Manning was better in the fourth quarter. We went through when it mattered most. Manning was better, and that was rare in this. I know it may seem like, well, he's Peyton Manning, but he was not able to do that versus this defense, versus Belichick's defense, most notably before this.
When you look at the overall numbers, you would say like, oh man, the Colts must have won this game pretty easily. 32 first downs to 17. Total yardage was 455 to 319. Patriots had less time with the football. I mean, basically everything kind of points to Indy probably controlled this game, but it didn't happen that way.
Yeah. And the Patriots found their way in the game by doing all the little things like they did for 20 years, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
But hey, look, in my opinion, the two best. I don't think Brady's controversial, but in my opinion, the two best quarterbacks of all time.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to argue. Well, it might be a little bit of argument, but
I think if you don't think they're the two best quarterbacks of all time, that you just forget.
Yeah, fair enough.
You just forget. You have the best playoff quarterback of all time and the best regular season quarterback of all time, who also, by the way, won 2 Super Bowls. So it's not like he never won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, good point. The Colts would go on to face the Bears in the Super Bowl. 2 African-American head coaches was the big storyline in that one. And it turned out to be the first Super Bowl for Peyton Manning and this Colts team. Peyton would go on to win another one, but this is a game that Peyton, I still think he really needed to win in order to kind of exercise some of those demons. And he did have a really good game, being the MVP of the game, throwing for 247 and a touchdown. Still wasn't his best. I mean, still wasn't his best performance, but
rainy.
Got it done.
Remember,
yeah.
the weather was really bad. We will not be doing this for the podcast because it was a terrible Super Bowl. But it got Peyton Manning his ring. Prince playing Purple Rain in the rain at halftime, probably more memorable than anything that happened in the game.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. Devin Hester's return to open up the game was the other memory I have from that one as well.
Yeah. Devin Hester was awesome.
All right, let's close it out, Mike. Again, we'll put this game up on our website, distantreplaypodcast.com. Go watch it for yourself there. And all of our games are archived there, so there's a ton of old content if you want to go back and watch old games. The best of the best. It's all up there on the website, distantreplaypodcast.com. Smash the like button on the YouTube channel. Leave us a comment. Also, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Hit us on Twitter, Instagram, and more importantly, spread the word for us.
Yeah, spread the word. Over 100 episodes we have. If you're a sports fan, big moments, true crime, sports episodes, documentary recaps, we have it all. Be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends about it. Tell your friends. All right, guys, thank you. See you next time.